Suzuki provides one of the widest ranges of compact crossover models that any brand can deliver. Here's the company's most practical offering in this segment, the SX4 S-Cross, a contender pitched midway between very small and family-sized contenders in this class. This revised version is smarter and better connected, plus it includes a couple of much more efficient Boosterjet petrol powerplants. In short, it's worth a second look.
The launch of Suzuki's SX4 S-Cross in 2013 marked the point where the brand got really serious about crossovers and compact family SUVs. Here's the improved version. Suzuki must find it frustrating to see other brands doing so well in the thriving crossover market. The Japanese maker has, after all, been offering products of this sort for some time, most notably the first generation SX4 model, originally launched way back in 2006, easily predating the original Nissan Qashqai that most people think pioneered this class of car. That very first SX4 was a little too small, a little too shy and retiring, and a little too poorly promoted to set the sales charts alight in the way its Nissan competitor did. But Suzuki watched, learnt, and came back fighting. As a result, the original version of this SX4 S-Cross was a much more competitive proposition. Of course, plenty has happened since 2013, most notably for Suzuki, the launch of their Vitara model. Now this essentially offers everything you get in an S-Cross in a similarly priced and trendier but slightly less practical package. But not everyone wants a fashion-conscious car in this segment, and for those prioritising practicality, this S-Cross could appeal. To keep its charms current, Suzuki significantly updated this model in the autumn of 2016. The key change being the adoption of the brand's frugal 1 litre and 1.4 litre Boosterjet petrol engines in place of the previous rather inefficient 1.6 litre petrol unit. Buyers also get smarter looks, higher quality interior and extra equipment at prices that'll give you a near Qashqai-sized family-shaped crossover for the kind of money you'd expect to pay for a smaller Duke-sized model. It sounds potentially appealing, doesn't it? So let's check this car out. If, like us, you're a little tired of crossover models of this kind being promoted as being sporty, then you might find this SX4 S-Cross to be refreshing in its sensible, family-orientated approach to vehicle dynamics. Now, Suzuki does know how to do sporty, just try a Swift Sport hot hatch if you're any doubt about that. But the company also knows that a higher riding vehicle that must offer a more absorbent ride and a modicum of off-road prowess can never be properly made to handle like a sporting car. More to the point, we're not sure why, as an owner, you'd ever really want it to. Before we get into that though, you're probably going to want to know what's changed with this improved model. Well, the key difference lies with the improvements made to the petrol engine lineup. Now previously there was only one green pump fueled unit provided, an old tech 120 PS 1.6 litre power plant that was only able to offer a rather feeble 156 Nm torque figure. This meant you had to rev it quite a lot to make any kind of meaningful progress. That unit has been ditched now in favour of a couple of petrol variants using Suzuki's new generation Boosterjet technology. Even the feeblest of these, the 111 PS 1 litre 3-cylinder unit that many people will choose, offers 9% more pulling power than that old 1.6. Plus, as you'd expect, it's a great deal cleaner and more frugal. If you're quick with the 5-speed manual gearbox, then the rest to 62 miles an hour sprint time takes 11 seconds en route to 112 mph flat out, and that's about the same as the previous engine can manage. Here though, we've been trying the alternative Boosterjet power plant, a 4-cylinder 1.4 litre unit that comes with a 6-speed manual gearbox and develops a useful 140 PS and 220 Nm of torque. In other words, 41% more pulling power than that old 1.6, and that's enough to see you to 62 mph in 10.2 seconds en route to 124 miles an hour. Both of the Boosterjet units can be ordered with a 6-speed CVT auto gearbox if you wanted. For really lusty pulling power though, there's no substitute for a diesel, and the 1.6 litre DDIS power plant provided is the same one that Suzuki offered in the car previously. It's a 120 PS unit putting out a useful 320 Newton meters of torque, which means that in this guise your S-Cross will be able to pull along up to 1.5 tons. That's 300 kilos more than the two petrol variants can manage. Even if you're never planning to hitch up, there are times when you'll really notice the extra grunt this engine produces, say when you're overtaking. Stay in 4th gear, for example, accelerating from 30 to 70 miles an hour, and you'll get there around 3 seconds quicker than you would in a directly comparable 1.7 litre diesel Kia Sportage. If you do choose the DDIS model, then you'll have to accept manual transmission, so it's just as well that what's provided is a reasonably slick 6-speed box. Enough on engines. What's this car like to drive? Well, what you want in a compact crossover of this sort are safe, predictable responses, feelsome steering, plenty of pulling power, and suspension that's able to soak away the worst tarmac scars that you'll encounter in the urban jungle that represents this car's preferred natural habitat. The S-Cross is no Qashqai or Seat Attica, but it doesn't fare too badly in trying to provide this important blend of virtues. Suzuki has set the car up fairly softly, which normally would mean compromises in body control. In fact though, the car is quite composed at speed through tighter turns, and it corners crisply, although two-wheel drive models sometimes lack a bit of traction out of slow corners. That's something that certainly be helped during the colder months by the fitment of winter tyres. That is not an issue you'll be troubled with if you pay the premium for all-grip 4-wheel drive, an option available with all 3 engines. Now this is the same on-demand setup that the S-Cross has always used, a setup it shares with its Vitara and Ignis crossover stablemates. This uses an electronically controlled clutch pack that distributes drive between the front and rear under orders from a 4-position switch that's down here beside the handbrake. Now, as with most such systems, this one will leave you in front-wheel drive most of the time unless a lack of traction is detected, in which case the rear wheels will be dialed in. That is what happens if you leave the whole thing in its set and forget auto mode. There are 3 other options though. Sport is meant for more spirited driving, and in this mode up to 20% of torque is diverted to the rear wheels for livelier handling. Which leaves us with the 2 options intended for the kind of off-road use this car will very rarely see. Although an increased level of ground clearance, it's now 15mm higher at 180 mils, will better facilitate off-piste use if you should care to attempt it. First, there's a snow mode, though that name's a bit misleading as it's actually a setting intended for all kinds of slippery, muddy conditions. Here the system will stay in 4-wheel drive all the time, constantly varying the power split front and rear depending on the conditions. That'll be ideal the next time you have to venture out on an icy, frozen morning. And finally, there's a lock option which splits the torque equally front to rear to give you the maximum chance of extricating your S-Cross from somewhere you probably shouldn't have ventured to in the first place. Suzuki feel that quite a few buying decisions in the crossover segment come down to aesthetics, and they're probably right. And the original version of this car was smart but quite forgettable, which is a problem in a class full of trendily styled rivals. Hence the changes made to this revised version, enhancements that certainly give the car a bit more pavement presence. Instead of the minor visual tweaks that most cars receive at midlife facelift time, this one's been treated to a completely fresh front end, along with 15 mils of extra ride height. Both things more overtly positioning it as a more credible SUV-style contender. As part of this, there's also a clamshell bonnet, a steep front end, and redesigned headlamps that above entry-level feature LED technology for the daytime running lights and the main beams. Further down, there's a more aggressive bumper section that on most models features fog lamps that are embellished by surrounding silver trim. Now from the side you get more of a perspective for the size of the car. Now Suzuki's designers have positioned it almost precisely between super mini based crossovers and larger family hatched based models of that sort. So the 4.3 metre length sees this S-Cross 175 mils longer than a Nissan Juke, but 77 mils shorter than the Nissan Qashqai. Now that is the kind of compromise that you'd think might well suit quite a few people. Now, as for visual enhancements from this perspective, well, things are much as before, although predictably the alloy wheels have been restyled. You get 16-inch rims on the entry-level version and these 17 inches elsewhere in the range. All variants get these extended wheel arches, and if you avoid the base model, then you get roof rails too, which are fashioned from aluminium on this top-spec derivative. Higher priced versions are also marked out by this silver-coloured underbody trim. Move to the rear, and the main change is that the tail lamps now feature dual-like LED illumination. Above there's a neat roof spoiler featuring an integrated stoplight, and under the bumper there's a skid plate style panel that's finished in either black or silver, depending on the trim level you've chosen. Of course, as usual, what's more important is the stuff that you can't see, namely this model's light, stiff platform, which is designed around what Suzuki calls total effective control technology. Now, this uses lots of high-strength steel to make the structure very strong, but also low in weight, which is the main reason why this S-Cross is so relatively light by class standards. Its curb weight can tip the scales at as little as 1,160 kilos, which, to give you some perspective, is about 150 kilos lighter than typical class rivals. Now, you do feel that lightweight when you slam the driver's door shut, which isn't ideal, but otherwise, by affordable compact crossover standards, the cabin feels quite nice, providing you're not expecting acres of slush moulded soft touch plastic. Suzuki really doesn't go in for that kind of finishing. Now, we approve of the brand's decision to instead spend the development budget on this 7-inch colour infotainment touchscreen that's standard above entry-level trim, and it's the kind of thing that some other rivals restrict to their priciest derivatives. Of course, this monitor will quickly get covered in fingerprints, plus the home screen graphics aren't much to look at. There's no CD player, and it's a bit odd that everything has to be either touch or voice controlled. Still, once you get over all that, you'll enjoy all the functionality that's provided as standard. Impressively, satellite navigation is included at no extra cost, along with the DAB radio and Bluetooth, and you even get the Apple CarPlay and MirrorLink phone connectivity that you just wouldn't expect on such an affordably priced compact family car. As for changes made to this revised model, well, Suzuki's made some efforts to improve the cabin ambience. So soft touch trim's been applied to the doors and the front of the fascia, and there's smart piano black finishing around the infotainment screen that's framed by silver trim that's also used around the air vents and the bottom of the centre stack. Otherwise, apart from the upgraded seat fabrics, it's much as before, which means that there are plenty of hard, scratchy plastics if you look for them. But everything does seem to have been decently screwed together by the Hungarian factory. Getting comfortable in front of the 3-spoke wheel is easy thanks to reach and rake adjustment, and through it you view a clear set of blue ring dials separated by a simple trip computer screen. In fact, almost everything about this cabin is simple to get to grips with, there being no button fest to baffle you on first acquaintance. More exalted brands could learn a thing or two from this layout's simplicity. As for cabin storage, well, there could be a little more of that. The door pockets are quite shallow, although Suzuki says they will take a 1-litre bottle, and the glove box size is limited, although you do get a reasonably sized bin ahead of the gear lever and a pair of cup holders between the front seats. So, a seat in the back. Now, here as usual in the Qashqai class, 2 adults will be fine and 3 won't be too uncomfortable at a squash, provided they're not too tall. Vertically challenged folk will especially struggle if they happen to be seated in a plush variant like this one that's equipped with a twin sliding panel panoramic sunroof that eats into the seating room. So if you are tempted by that and fancy this feature, test out the back of the car first. If you can live with the roofline, this sunroof is certainly a nice thing to have, offering one of the largest open apertures in this segment. It's perhaps more important to note that you get significantly more room here for legs, elbows and shoulders than you would in a smaller crossover. Knees too, thanks to the careful way that these seat backs have been moulded. As for other issues, well, this raised central transmission tunnel gets in the way a bit, but provided you avoid entry-level trim, you get a reclining rear seat and a centre armrest with integrated cup holders. Now, time to take a look in the boot. Now, it's about 20% bigger than the trunk you get in a smaller super mini-based crossover, like a Mocha, an EcoSport, a Duke, and so on. The 430-litre total being about the same as provided by a Nissan Qashqai. And you can make good use of the space available thanks to a neat false floor that lifts to reveal some hidden storage. There's also a pair of cubbies behind the rear wheel arches, plus shopping bag hooks and a 12-volt socket. Only if you need more space than the basic boot area provides might the S-Cross disappoint, because pushing forward the split folding rear bench increases your capacity only up to 875 litres. That's around half of what you get in some rivals. Does help though if you position the false boot floor properly, you get a totally flat load bay. There's no facility to slide the rear bench backwards and forwards to increase the basic boot space, but as we just mentioned, the backrest here does recline on most models. If you were to put it into an uncomfortably vertical position, Suzuki says you get an extra 10 litres of trunk capacity. The SX4 S-Cross range is a pretty straightforward one to get your head around. In theory, prices range in the £15,000 to £25,000 bracket. Look at the price list though, and it's soon pretty obvious that there's a price leader for the range. The £15,000 1-litre Boosterjet SZ4 petrol model. But beyond that, almost all the other variants sell in the £20,000 to £25,000 bracket. If you are looking at the 111 PS 1-litre Boosterjet version and you can find the extra £4,500 to upgrade beyond entry-level trim to the sat-nav-equipped SZT variant, then your dealer will offer you two further options. An extra £1,350 will get you a 6-speed automatic gearbox, or an extra £1,800 will get you a manual variant with foregrip 4-wheel drive. If budget permitted though, we'd be tempted to try and upgrade the variant that we're testing here, which features a pokier 140 PS 1.4 litre version of that Boosterjet petrol engine. Okay, so this variant is quite pricey, with this manual version costing around £23,000, but that's because it only comes with foregrip 4-wheel drive and top spec SZ5 trim. There is the £1,350 option of automatic transmission too if you want it. As for rivals, well, probably we should start by looking at the car that shares showroom space with this one, Suzuki's Vitara. The two models sit on the same platform and use many of the same mechanicals, and where direct model-for-model comparisons can be made, the Vitara will save you between £1,000 and £2,000, depending on the variant you're looking at. However, that model's less practical shape does compromise its practicality, meaning that the boot is 55 litres smaller. Now, if you turn your attention to other brands, assessing the value proposition this SX4 S-Cross offers is a little awkward because it sits neatly in the middle of the market's two main compact crossover classes. Those cars based on super minis like Ford's EcoSport, Nissan's Duke, Vauxhall's Mocha and Peugeot's 2008, and those slightly bigger ones that are based on family hatchbacks like Nissan's Qashqai, Renault's Kadjar and Peugeot's 3008. Now, Suzuki contends that with an SX4 S-Cross, you're getting a car from the larger class for the price of a vehicle from the smaller one, which is pretty much true. Other similarly priced crossovers that are able to make the same sort of claim include Skoda's Yeti, Mitsubishi's ASX, Seat's Attica and Honda's HR-V. The Skoda and the Mitsubishi do offer a wider range of petrol variants in the £15,000 to £20,000 bracket, but the engines on offer are less efficient than the Boosterjet units available in this Suzuki. We think the Seat's a closer match, but its starting price is pitched around £3,000 above that of the base version of the Suzuki, plus across the range, model for model, you get less equipment with the Attica. As for the Honda HR-V, well, with that car you do get a model lineup that's arguably more similar to that of the Suzuki, but again, there's the issue of specification. If you equipped an HR-V to match the standards of this SX4 S-Cross, then you'd be paying thousands more for it. Plus, like many other compact crossovers, that Honda can't be ordered in 4-wheel drive form. Once you've considered all of that, you may well end up concluding that it is an SX4 S-Cross that you really need, in which case you'll be wanting to know exactly what's included in terms of standard kit. And the answer is quite a reasonable amount. Now, all models get alloy wheels of at least 16 inches in size, daytime running lights, headlamp leveling and electric heated mirrors. Inside there's air conditioning with a pollen filter, cruise control with a speed limiter, an immobiliser, central locking, Bluetooth phone compatibility and a decent quality 4-speaker CD stereo with a USB input and steering wheel controls. That's for the base SZ4 model. If you're able to find the quite significant premium that's necessary to upgrade into the mid-range SZT variant, you can expect to add quite a lot to that tally, namely the smartphone linkage display audio setup with its 7-inch colour touchscreen. Now that comes with satellite navigation, a better quality 4-speaker DAB stereo with Bluetooth, plus the MirrorLink and Apple CarPlay smartphone linking systems, along with USB and auxiliary connections. Other SZT features include LED headlamps, front fog lights, auto headlamps and wipers, power folding mirrors, privacy glass, roof rails, chrome window trim and larger 17-inch alloy wheels and front and rear parking sensors. Inside, SZT buyers get climate control, keyless entry, rear parking camera, a leather covered steering wheel, a rear centre armrest and a reclining rear seat. In this case though, we've been trying the smarter SZ5 trim level. Now here, premium features include leather upholstery, adaptive cruise control and a huge double sliding panoramic glass sunroof. That's enough about trim levels. What about safety? Well, the most obvious boxes seem to have been ticked. So, as you expect in this day and age, every model has ABS anti-lock brakes, ESP stability control, and a brake assist function for emergency stops. There's also a tyre pressure monitoring system, along with twin front, side, and curtain airbags. Plus, there are 2 ISOFIX child seat mounts in the rear bench. Plus, the bodywork has been designed to be pedestrian friendly in the unfortunate event that someone steps out in front of you. Now, as for new generation electronic safety features, well, for those you'll need to stretch up to the SZ5 variant that we've been trying here. The key additional safety feature that comes with this higher trim level is what Suzuki calls radar brake support, which is the brand's take on autonomous emergency braking. Now, if the system detects a possible hazard in front of the S-Cross, it alerts the driver with visual and audible warnings. Now, if the driver doesn't respond, then the brakes will be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident, if it can't be avoided completely, that is. Many S-Cross customers will choose the DDIS diesel engine, and understandably so. It pulls well and gets strong economy. Now, thanks to features like optimized bodywork and underfloor aerodynamics, along with an auto stop-start system to cut the engine when you don't need it, like when you're stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights, Suzuki quotes a figure of 68.9 mpg on the combined cycle for the front-wheel drive version, along with 106 grams per kilometre of CO2. Though that's not quite as good as a slightly less powerful Nissan Qashqai 1.5 DCI 110, it's still a very good showing, easily beating base diesel versions of cars like Hyundai's Tucson and Kia's Sportage. It's also good enough to beat smaller, feebler crossovers like base diesel versions of the Ford EcoSport and the Vauxhall Mokka X. Of course, if you order your diesel SX4 S-Cross with all-grip four-wheel drive, then you'll be expecting the returns to fall a little. But fortunately, the impact isn't too great. The figures sliding only marginally to 64.2 mpg and 114 grams per kilometre, which looks very competitive against comparable 4x4 crossover alternatives like Subaru's XV and Jeep's Renegade. Choose a 1-litre Boosterjet petrol engine version of this Suzuki and you're looking at 56.5 mpg on the combined cycle and 113 grams per kilometre of CO2. And that means the car will go around 5 miles further on every gallon and put out 14 grams per kilometre less of CO2 than the 1.6-litre petrol unit that was previously used in the car. It's all thanks to Boosterjet technology that uses a clever small displacement, high torque turbocharger and a variable fuel pressure control system that more accurately optimizes fuel injection to suit the way you're driving. Opt for the 1-litre Boosterjet engine with either the automatic gearbox or foregrip four-wheel drive, and the penalty isn't too drastic. The CO2 figure falling to 119 grams per kilometre and the combined cycle fuel consumption falling to around 54 miles per gallon. Here we've been trying the 1.4-litre Boosterjet petrol model, which only comes with foregrip four-wheel drive and manages 50.4 mpg and 127 grams in manual form, and only a fraction less than that if you go for the auto gearbox. Now that is very good by class standards. If you'd like a point of reference, then a comparably performing Mini Countryman Cooper All 4 with a similarly powerful petrol engine delivers 46.3 mpg and 139 grams per kilometre. So much for minimalism. Now, if you're wondering how Suzuki has managed to produce such an efficient set of end results across the range, well, much of the answer lies not only in engineering, but also in weight, or rather the lack of it. The lightest SX4 S-Cross petrol variant weighs just 1,160 kilos, and even the four-wheel drive all-grip models start at just 1,225 kilos. Now, to put that in perspective, a comparable two-wheel drive Nissan Qashqai tips the scales at 1,318 kilos in its lightest form, while the lightest Kia Sportage sits the wrong side of 1.5 tons. In other words, the SX4 S-Cross is vastly less bulky than nearly all its competitors. No wonder such a strong balance sheet showing is easily within its remit, with diesel model returns that'll see you paying just £20 a year in road tax. That's a fiscal triumph for a car of this size. What else? Well, service intervals at every 12,500 miles, whichever engine you choose, and your dealer will offer you various prepaid servicing options at the time of purchase, so you can budget ahead in that respect. Insurance, well, the entry-level 1-litre Boosterjet SZ4 petrol model is rated at Group 16E. Move to one of the two-wheel drive 1-litre SZT variants and the rating rises to 21D or 20D if you order the foregrip four-wheel drive version. This 1.4-litre Boosterjet foregrip model is rated at Group 24D. As for the 1.6-litre DDIS diesel, well, you're looking at Group 26D for the two-wheel drive model or Group 25D for the foregrip derivative. The warranty is the usual 3-year, 60,000 mile affair, and there's a year of pan-European roadside assistance, plus a 12-year perforation warranty. Now finally, residual values are forecasted to be very acceptable by general class standards, with independent industry experts CAP quoting a retained value of 33 to 34% over the usual 3-year, 60,000 mile period. Here's the affordable family-sized crossover that you probably forgot to add to your shopping list. A car that's well equipped to handle the grim realities of modern family life, with its congested school runs, child-centered messiness, and weekend visits to ungrateful relatives. Now, if you don't have a lifestyle family, but you'd rather like a lifestyle car of this kind, then by all means try an S-Cross. We think you'll probably like it. True, the motoring magazines may well tell you about other Qashqai class crossovers they prefer, but inspect the fine print when it comes to comparably sized models and you'll almost certainly find that all of these will cost you significantly more. And that is an important consideration when you've got to feed, clothe and holiday a brood of increasingly demanding offspring. Of course, it's worth stretching up to something better if that something offers a more practical, efficient alternative. The question is, though, whether the rival crossovers that shade this Suzuki in terms of handling, cabin ambiance, or total luggage space are really worth paying so much more for. Spend some time with this improved SX4 S-Cross and you may well conclude that they aren't. Yes, it would be nice if four-wheel drive was a more affordable option, but then that's an issue with so many cars in this class. More obvious choices in this one, but as we've suggested, not necessarily better for it. So yes, make sure you try this Suzuki if you're shopping in this segment. The brand sees it as being perfect for families without being just a family car. And after trying an S-Cross, you might well be inclined to agree.